Well, good evening, Molly and Topol. We are very happy to have you here tonight at the DII, to which you present your new book, The Un-Americans. It is your first book, and it was widely praised also. You were nominated for the National Book Award. You received the 5 Under 35 award also. Congratulations to that success.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you very much for having me. I'm really happy to be here and to be in beautiful Heidelberg.
Thank you. I'm very curious to listen to your stories afterwards. When I first read the title, The Un-Americans, I found it almost a bit threatening, because the un-American activities of the McCarthy area sounded through, or also today's homeland security issues,
Right.
I heard at least. What made you write about being American or being not American or un-American even?
Well, the first stories that I wrote were very much inspired by my family history, and notably their involvement in the Communist Party in the U.S. And I had grown up hearing their stories of the tapped lines and the dinner time visits from the FBI and the FBI sorting through their trash, and it was really interesting for me, although I wasn't even aware of, I think as a writer with the first book, we're not so aware of what we want to write. It just sort of comes out. It's like you have to get these stories out. And I really was interested in exploring what it might have been like for my mother and for her siblings to inherit all of their family's politics and to grow up under so much surveillance when it was something that no one else in their neighborhood was experiencing and their friends at school were not experiencing. So that was how the title first came to be. I was thinking about the McCarthy era and the witch hunts and all of that. But as I wrote more, I became really interested in what the word American and also what the word un-American might mean to this current generation of Israelis. It's such a messy but such a symbiotic relationship that Israelis have to the U.S. And I was interested in thinking about it in my stories. For example, I have a young Israeli soldier who deeply resents guarding a settlement filled with American religious families, but he still pines for a chance to visit America for himself. So, and on and on.
Yeah. So actually it's a book about finding a culture, isn't it?
Yes.
Like your family who came to America from Ukraine originally 2 or 3 generations ago, but also to the close relationship or friendship Israel has with America, with again finding a kind of same territory or...
That's exactly it. And it's the feeling, I think that I often find in my own life too, of just never feeling quite at home and kind of trying to search out where that actual home might be. And I think that's something that all of my characters wrestle with.
Yeah, and that's where characters also wander. They wander through their lives, through different homes, through different shifts of their family biographies. And it's also like they are trying to find or to reshape identities. Did I read this correctly?
Absolutely, it's exactly.
So they're wandering between the times and also wandering between homes, and then these events happen within seconds that can change a whole life. And again, you have to go on the move. You have to adapt your personality, your life to what's happened.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that it's something that all of my characters seem to struggle with, whether they've arrived in a new place and don't quite feel at home, or whether they're looking, or whether they're escaping where they are and thinking that there's some other place where they'll be more accepted or more comfortable.
And coming back to being American, if we talk about America, we easily talk about the American dream. Which role does the American dream play in your stories? And do we have an American dream today still? What do you think?
I think that that's a concept that a lot of my characters are trying very hard to embrace, but they don't quite know what it means for themselves. So, for example, in the story "The Unknown Soldier," here's a character who is, who comes from a Russian-American background and is trying so hard to make it in the film industry that he fabricates his political and left-wing beliefs to get in with this, this communist film director. And I think about how all of my characters seem to have a concept of what this American dream might be, and then it often kind of slaps them in the face, and they're wrong.
But in the end, this dream doesn't have to do with America so much anymore, does it? Because it's an individual pursuit of happiness, which and the notion of happiness can change radically, can't it?
I think so. I think so. And that was something that I was really interested in exploring in the book also, were these moments of joy. They felt so much harder for me to write than moments of pain or moments of regret. There's something about kind of staying in this moment of happiness. And I often found with this book that I could write about these sustained moments of happiness only if I could kind of see the truck coming around the corner to hit the characters right after.
So why do you think was this more difficult?
I don't know.
Because actually, if you go through a situation of pain, you relive it. Isn't it just so much nicer to relive a situation of bliss?
I think so. In life, I think it is. But I think that in terms of being a storyteller, it's hard because it's not there's not as much tension or plot or excitement in moments of happiness. You know, if I wrote about people being in love with each other their entire lives and never cheating on each other and never wandering, it's just, you know, I don't know where I would find the tension.
Too true to be good. Oh no, too good to be true.
Too good to be true.
This way around. But actually, this seems to confirm the concept that suffering brings you to creativity much more than happiness. Or at least a bit more. What do you think?
I think that's unfortunately true. I mean, at least for me, I think that the hardest times that I've had in my life, I've been able to find solace and comfort through books. And there's something about finding an author or finding a book that has created a structure around something that feels sort of like it's going to take over your whole life. And suddenly someone's created a structure and a narrative that can contain that. Yeah, okay. And that to me is why I read.
So if you say structure, was the solace then more in the structure than in the content for you?
I think it is in the structure. I think it's the idea that, that you can hold it in your hand. You can think about this horrible, you know, losing someone you love, or, you know, the hardest things in life. To read a book or to write a book that is able to kind of control that and turn it into art, to me is just an incredibly amazing thing.
So this is also a moment in which you give shape again, so to something that may have been shattered before.
Exactly.
And then you go to the level of art and start to reconstruct it in a different way.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And I found that for a long time that was, I think, the reason that I read. But as I got older, it also became the reason that I wrote, because I was able to take the most difficult parts of life and turn them into story. And it felt I felt like I could control it.
How big was the step from reading to writing to deal with these topics you just mentioned?
I think it was pretty natural, actually. I mean, I ever since I was a little kid, I've written stories, obviously for myself, and I always read so much. But I think to me, writing just felt to me like this incredibly glamorous profession that only really wealthy people could do. And so I assumed that I would have another career and write on the weekends. And when I was, for a long time, I wanted to be a marine biologist, which will actually, I think, make it into work, because I still am passionate about that. But I think that it was just, I found that I loved it so much that I just started applying for grants and fellowships and then to school for it. And when I was in graduate school, I started to teach writing, and I just found that I loved it. I loved teaching writing, and so I was able to find this balance where I could have employment and have, you know, have financial security through my teaching, and then be able to write whatever I wanted. So I kind of worked it out.
You just said being a writer seemed so glamorous. Is it glamorous now to you?
I really like it. I do. I mean, you know,
there's great success from the start now.
Oh, thank you. I mean, there's nothing glamorous about the actual writing, because you're usually in your sweatpants alone in a room all day, and there's nothing glamorous about that.
It's quite lonesome.
It can be a little lonely, but for me, I'm just the happiest when I'm traveling. I'm the happiest when I'm in a new place, and so the fact that I've been able to do that a lot through research in my book, and then to be here for my book, is really amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Your book has almost its own story too, or its own biography. You said in some interview it took you about 10 years to write it. Can you just describe shortly the most crucial steps you had in writing this book and getting it into existence? Right.
I mean, there were so many. I think 10 years is such a long time to spend on a book, and I hope that it doesn't take me that long for my others. But I think that from the very beginning, I just thought that I have one chance to put a first book in the world, and I have one chance to introduce my stories to readers and to publishers. And so I just wanted to make sure that I could stand behind every word. And I didn't know if that meant that other people would like it, or that someone would want to publish it, or that critics would like it, or that readers would like it. But I knew that I had to feel like I could really... I was really confident about everything that I had written, and I felt that I had made the right choices in each story. And that was what took so long.
And stand in for it.
Exactly.
Okay. The story also touches the biography or events in your family. How hard was it to go on writing, just in a consistent way? Also, if you touch these painful moments.
I think because it was fiction, it made it easier.
Mhm.
I know a lot of writers personally who don't have a problem writing very directly about their family, and they feel that it's kind of an occupational hazard if relatives are upset. But for me, I just don't want to write about my family directly. I love them and feel really protective of them, and so there was something about having fiction where I could completely create these characters, and they were coming completely from my imagination that freed me up and kind of took away that guilt I might have felt.
Okay, and so fictionalizing it put you into a distance in which you could well work with the memories you had, or with original events you may have thought of.
Exactly. I mean,
put you into a kind of emotional distance.
Exactly, and I think that, but I think also for fiction, I don't even know how I would have based any of these characters on real people, because to me, the moment I start writing and the moment I'm sitting down and thinking, that's the joy for me, is just imagining who is this person and where did they come from and what's their backstory and what did they resist and what do they want. All of that, it's all imagination for me, and it's all invention. So none of them are inspired by anyone I know. I wouldn't even know how to do that.
How do you find these paths?
It's just this great, it's just an incredible pleasure where I don't even understand where it comes from.
Okay.
But usually it starts with a voice, and it's almost like I can hear the music of a voice. And as soon as I can understand the rhythm of how my character is talking and thinking, then they just kind of live with me. And I go on a lot of runs, or I take my dog out in the woods a lot, and I just kind of think about it, and I think, how would they respond to whatever I'm experiencing in my life? I mean, even if it's someone in Israel, or someone, from in the 1940s in Belarus, like someone that's so far from my own life experience, I get their voice, and it feels almost like method acting, where they're just kind of living with it.
So you start with an almost audible experience, and that creates the whole atmosphere of the character in the first place.
Exactly, and it often doesn't work. I mean, if I don't get the voice right, and I start with the situation, then the story can feel a bit too mechanical, and those ones weren't successful.
Have you ever experienced that you had to rearrange this voice?
Absolutely. All of the stories took me so long also because I'm trying to imagine an entire life for each story and thinking about an entire life of these characters, and then trying to isolate these moments of extreme conflict and tension, and that's where the story will be. And oftentimes it takes me, until draft 5 or 6 or 10 until I really know who's in the most complicated place in the story and where the conflict really lies. So with maybe half of them, I had to change who the narrator was once I understood the true conflict of the story.
What gets you into the flow of writing? Where imagination just flows and these voices come to you?
Coffee. It helps in the morning.
Okay, that's a sign. It's so easy.
Yeah, I mean, I just sit down and I do it, and I turn off my phone, and I block the internet. All of that noise I can't have.
Just one last question on literature itself. What do you think is literature able to do?
I know what it's able to do for me, and that's that it lets me see the world through the eyes of someone who's completely different from myself. So it gets me out of my own life and my own experience, and lets me experience a larger form of empathy through reading.
And is there a text that is kind of wandering with you through your life?
Oh, there are so many.
So many.
There are so many. I mean, ever since probably high school, The Brothers Karamazov has been one of my favorite books. I've just loved that book. War and Peace also. It is a world of a book. And it's a book that I can keep going back to every couple of years and find something completely different in it. Grace Paley is a story writer I just read again and again and again. James Baldwin.
Okay. So, thank you very much, Marlene Topol, for this nice conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. This was lovely.
Thank you.